Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. I'm your host for this session. I'm Sean.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're going to talk about a unique problem that you might be having in your sales process and your sales world. This 15 minutes is designed for salespeople, sales managers, and CEOs of the company that are trying to increase their revenue and trying to be more productive in your sales processes. So let's get started.
In this episode, Kevin, I'd really like to talk about the issues that we don't talk a lot about in our previous podcast episodes, and we've done almost 70 of those. Can you believe that? We have done almost 70 episodes. I think this will be 69, if I remember correctly. Congratulations to us. Pat yourself on the back. Don't break your arm doing it. Let's talk about the organization that sells a product that is consumed by its customers. A lot of companies sell a product where they sell it and it's there forever, or it's there for at least a long time, and the salesperson doesn't really have to go back on a repetitive basis except for maybe expansion opportunities or repair opportunities or maintenance opportunities. But there are a lot of salespeople out there that sell a consumable. They sell, if you're in the manufacturing space, they sell steel or aluminum. They sell cutters. They sell oil. Maybe they're selling paper products to companies that need to do printing. There's a lot of products out there that just get used up, even to the point of there is somebody out there today that sells toilet paper. That is the same toilet paper you use when you go to the hotel. That hotel's got to buy that toilet paper. It has to buy a bunch of stuff. And those salespeople are vital to the customer's experience. They help their company grow, and they're important. And we just haven't spent much time talking about it. Let's talk a little bit about the salesperson that sells a consumable product that gets used up.
Fantastic. This is something that is from my past. For the people who are checking us out on LinkedIn, they're going to see that I work for a distributor. My first jobs coming out of college were working in a leadership training program, selling plumbing, irrigation supplies to contractors, new construction, new home building, commercial construction, and then HVAC and refrigeration distributors. So this is something where you're selling into a situation where you typically have a lot of competition. So that's a big hang up here. So you get a lot of competition, and there's a lot of non-exclusive distributorships. To your example about the toilet paper or the paper to a print shop, 80-pound paper is 80-pound paper. 8.5 by 11 is 8.5 by 11, whether you're buying it from Hammermill or Weyerhaeuser or whatever house brand you're looking at. There's a lot of competition. I think what's really valuable for us to point out to our listeners here is that you, as a salesperson, a sales leader, you need a strategy. And it can't just be relationship only.
I agree. And in fact, it can't be based on just the product, and it can't be just based on the quality of the company that's doing the selling. So, Kevin, I know you've heard me talk about this. I've talked about it in other sessions we've done. I say that every sales campaign is selling three things. The three things are the product. The product absolutely has to work, has to be the right product to fit the customer's need. The company that you're working for that's doing the sales transaction, and then the salesperson themselves. And I think in the environment that we're talking about here, where it's a consumable product, the reality is the product is probably a Me Too product. Not so much that it's not the best product on the market, but there's quite likely there's somebody else selling the same product, especially if you're talking about a distributor, a reseller of products. That's the same product that somebody else is selling. So there's not a lot of differentiation if you're selling exactly the same product. There is a little bit of differentiation potentially at the company level. My distributor takes care of his customers, and we do training and whatever more than the other distributor does. So we have some differentiation capabilities there. But the quality of the salesperson comes to play in a big way. How well does that salesperson truly understand the customer's needs, the customer's desires, what they're trying to achieve in their business? I think that is a big reason why one company will sell more than the other. And it's not just about the relationship, it's the understanding of the business environment that you're selling to. And what other things can you bundle into that sale aside from just selling the oil to make sure that your machine tools are working appropriately. Oil is important. Somebody else is selling the same kind of lubricant as well. I said oil should be more lubricant because I don't think there's a lot of oil-based lubricants anymore, but somebody else is selling lubricants as well. What value are you bringing? Are you making sure that you never have a stock out? Are you making sure that you have great terms, you have great delivery terms, you have great COD terms, whatever the case may be? Those are important, but those are kind of from a company standpoint. But from a salesperson standpoint, how do you position yourself that you are offering more services because of you and not just the company and not just the product?
You hit on all the really important things. So let's dial back through a couple of those that are really important, and let's kind of frame these up for a salesperson that's charged with breaking open a new territory. The salesperson or the sales leader who's trying to design a new territory, figuring out how many potential customers there are in a new territory before you hire a salesperson. This is all part of the ingredients that bakes the sales cake of sorts. When we're thinking about strategy, let's start simple first, right? Simplicity will rule the day when we're breaking into new territories. Let's start with making sure we know our product and what our core value to market is. The value to market is, are we a price fighter? Are we selling on price only? That dictates not only how we sell, but who we hire to sell. We got to make sure that if we're selling ultra premium, that we're not discounting as if we're low price. So just the nuances of where do we fall on the pricing spectrum is one key thing to establish first before we ever think about hiring, designing customer bases and things of that nature. I've worked in a couple of businesses and worked for a couple of other businesses that were really trying to figure this out. These were well-established businesses, but they had grown over time organically. And the largest part of their business came from relationships, which was, they didn't quite realize, they didn't have their thumb right quite on the pulse, but having that relationship only as the only thing you're selling on leaves you as a salesperson really at a risk point, because at the moment prices change or you're out of something and somebody experiences a new vendor that doesn't have a relationship and they like something else, all of a sudden you are back at square one. You've not established any additional value other than yourself. It's not a bad thing to have value in yourself. Don't get me wrong. There's a component of relationship in every sale. But if that's the only thing, if we're just using that one lens, that's really important to get out of. So figure out how you're selling. Are we high price, high value? Are we medium price, minimum value, median value, but we're not adding a lot of features, but we're not subtracting a lot of features? Like you mentioned before, Sean, great terms, great service, great quality. We have to have a lot of other great things if we're just going to be a middle of the road product. So figuring out these bare bones of the structure of the strategy is first important before we get down to the next component of what I'd like to talk about also is the sales process for acquiring the new customers.
And I think when you are designing that territory, if you're a sales manager or the CEO of a regional distributor of a product, I think you need to think of the 3 becomes 4, 4 becomes 5 kind of argument. And let me explain what I'm thinking here. I don't believe that you should start a new salesperson and say, here are a portion of the city, a portion of the region, the counties that we serve, whatever, that we have never called on before. Hey, brand new sales guy, go have fun. Whatever you can bring in, that's great. That's a recipe for failure in so many cases with salespeople where they have no relationship. There is nothing going on. The company doesn't have any market share in any of their accounts. And now they're being tasked with go break it open. And that's very expensive. It's expensive for the salesperson, but it's also expensive for the company. And it's probably not a great use of resources for the company. My argument would be, let's just say you have 4 salespeople. In this case, it's 4 becomes 5. You need to take a certain portion of everybody's account base. And I get it. That guy worked really hard for those accounts that he's calling on, and he's been successful. And now you're going to say, we're going to take 20% of your accounts and we're going to take them away. Now, you're not going to take his best 20%. You're probably going to take the lower portion of his business, the ones where he isn't kind of running the show and doesn't know everybody at the account. It's really good to take the worst 20% of each salesperson in this case, move them over to the next salesperson. So those 4 each give up 20% of their accounts that really aren't making the difference in their revenue anyway. And now we have the salesperson, the new salesperson, calling on those, as well as tasked with going after some greenfield accounts that have never been called on, that everybody's kind of skipped over or didn't pay attention to. But that gives that salesperson the ability to be successful from day one, and it allows them to learn the details of the business by taking care of existing customers. And that's where I see people making the mistake. They put a brand new salesperson into a greenfield account list where we've never done business. Now he's starting to close some things, but he doesn't know how to get anything done because he's never done that before. That salesperson doesn't have any experience at taking care of a customer. Therefore, they end up failing, and those brand new customers you just brought in become a tremendous amount of work, and too much work, and you actually are at risk then of blowing it on those brand new customers. Kind of ruins your whole philosophy. Giving them some low-level accounts, some C accounts, if we're going to do some A, B, C account grading, giving them some C accounts that they can then turn into B accounts. They probably can't turn them into A accounts, but giving them some C accounts that they can turn into B accounts gives them the confidence that they can be successful at finding some new A accounts in that greenfield territory. The challenge now is, what is your process for doing it? If you're going to be going after those accounts, we've kind of alluded to this, and that is, you really need to know what you sell. What is your value proposition? And in our world, Kevin, we talked about a unique selling proposition, and even a distributor of somebody else's products. Distributor meaning they're buying and reselling somebody else's products. They can have a unique selling proposition. In fact, they should have a unique selling proposition. What does that company do extremely well? And what do they want to make sure that every one of their customers agrees that, yes, ABC Distribution Company absolutely rocks at doing that. And you need to have that really figured out, because that is the message that brand new salesperson is now going to have to take that message and walk into somebody that doesn't know them at all and say, Mr. Prospect, is this important to you? And then explain what the USP is. You better have that USP nailed if you're going to do that.
Nailing the USP is absolutely mission critical work. And for the sales leaders and salespeople that are listening here, let's do a little mission critical work here. Let's paint by numbers. For the salesperson, if you don't have a leader listening to a podcast like this, where we're talking about strategy and tactics, take this away. You need to know where and how you compete. It's as simple as that. Who do I call on? How do I compete? Is it price? Is it value? Where on the spectrum am I? And then you can take that to your sales leader and say, hey, this is what I see. This is how I see it. Am I right? That way you can lead up. If you're a sales leader listening to this podcast, I hope your sales team is hearing this from you, but if they're not, you can coach them, because you should probably know a lot of this. But also, one of the nuggets that Sean alluded to earlier is, as a sales leader, what are you doing? What is your strategy for growing the territory? 3 to 4, 4 to 5. That's one sales leadership tactic for growing the organization, growing the influence. To roll that stone over one more time, thinking about sales leadership strategies, thinking about what products do you lead with? Do all of your team lead with the same product? Or do they have this kind of mixed bag of, well, my number one salesperson leads with this product because they know it the best. My number salesperson in this other territory knows this other product better. They lead with that product. If you can, as a leader, use a sales strategy of getting you the best work out of your team by cross-selling, crossing their best capabilities. If I've got 3 people on my team who are all great at one thing, their unique selling proposition, I'm making sure they're coaching each other. Cross-pollination of coaching is a huge value add that you don't have to outsource, that you don't have to pull people out of the field to do. It's oftentimes what you know best is what you do best. So we're right here at 15 minutes, so we know best that we need to hold our promises to you as a listener. Stick around next time when we release our next podcast. We're going to dig in a little bit deeper and talk about how to keep the business in these repetitive sales organizations. We're going to talk about keeping it and boxing out your competition. Have a great week and happy selling. And that's a wrap. Thanks again for joining Kevin and Sean on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Tune in every Tuesday, or when our podcast drops every Tuesday at 4:30, wherever you consume your podcast. And don't miss our monthly CEO workshop, where we unpack some of the big CEO questions facing your business. Until next time, we're looking forward to seeing you. Happy selling.